Good morning. It is Saturday, actually not Sunday. This is a bit of a different thing for me. I have some holidays coming up and I wanted to get on a weekend and do some stuff with you guys, but I realized that I won't be around tomorrow, so last minute I decided, you know what, why don't we just start streaming on a Saturday morning at 8:30. Whoever's up at this time and wants to hang out with me is, hey, amazing. I'm going to fuss around today with some station platforms, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the YouTuber meet and greet that I was fortunate enough to attend yesterday. And yeah, I want to get into a little more about that because it actually was really great, and I want to make sure that the right people get thanked because I went to day one of, I think, 4, and it was a lot of fun. But anyway, first of all, good morning to Pine Valley Railroad, I Run Games and Trains, Sky Cash, BN Ironwood, CSX, YouTube, RDG, and George McCormick so far. And I think I've seen a couple other people in there over the past 12 hours when I first put the stream up. And so, yeah, good morning to everybody. Yesterday was an unexpected outing to, so Sparky 107 has been planning something called a YouTube meet and greet, probably for about 4 or 5 months. And I had originally not planned on going because, as I said, I have some holiday plans ahead of me. And my friend Brian reached out to me and said, "Are you going?" And I said, "No, I'm going to pass." And he's like, "Well, what if I drive?" And so that twisted my arm, and so we decided to head down. And yesterday's festivities were, we first stopped off at the Ontario Southland Railway, and after that we went over to Otter Valley Railroad, which is a hobby shop, and then we came back to Sparky's place and, you know, sat around and ran some trains and hung out and had some good conversation. I think right out of the gate, I want to say a big thank you to Sparky 107, Dave, for putting this event on. I don't think people realize the amount of work that goes into planning this. And for anyone who isn't aware of what's going on, aside from what I just described from yesterday, they are going to Little Canada, they're going to some historical railroads. Like they're having dinner on a historical railroad car, their shop tours and such. This is a 4-day event, and yesterday, only in passing, I met some people who flew in, I guess from Australia, the UK, the western coast of Canada, and all throughout the United States. So I don't know how many dozen people have showed up to this, but I cannot say enough that, dear Dave, thank you for putting it on and hosting it. I know it's a tremendous amount of work, and I'm sure everyone appreciates it, but if you do ever catch this, I just want to say that even for the only day that I showed up and got to take advantage of all these events, it was awesome. Really good stuff. 10 out of 10 to Dave. Oh, good morning, Tobias, and Approach Medium in Clovedale. So, I did do a little bit of, well, okay, so first of all, I got a little bit of swag from some other people on YouTube. My good friend Floyd gave me like the nicest like merch package ever of pens and bottle openers. As well as I met a YouTuber named FB Railroad 4628. He gave me some stickers and some fridge magnets, and a couple other people. I got some Via Rail 70th anniversary swag as well, and met a lot of great people. Again, it was a lot of fun. And the other thing I did is I decided to go shopping, but I didn't go wild. And I got a couple of things, which I'm excited about. So first of all, I finally got some graffiti decals or decals, depending upon which part of the world you're coming from. And I'm excited because this is going to speed up the graffiti process. I do have a way that I can do it using some stencils and an airbrush, and I like it. It's good for mass producing and doing a lot, but the detail on these is finer than I can reproduce, and so I'm going to now start be able to lean into taking care of all of my rolling stock, and in particular, I've got a lead on some prototype pictures for adding graffiti to GO Transit passenger equipment. And generally speaking, passenger equipment tends to avoid the spray can, but that's if you don't lock it up real tight. So I've got those from yesterday, which was great. Something new to me is panel liner. Now this is an awful lot like the India ink washes that I use with rubbing alcohol to douse, but this really runs into little cracks, and so I'm excited that once you give something a bit of a dusting and a weathering and bring down the paint, you use this and you can touch little edges and seams and such, and it flows. It flows really easily, and it fills them in and adds some nice contrast. So between the water slide transfers, the graffiti transfers, and the panel liner, I am excited because this is getting me on the road to getting some of my rolling stock finally weathered. When I was picking up those things, ITLA Scale Models was actually at the hobby shop, and they are a model kit manufacturer, laser cut models, and I appreciated they came all the way out to sit at the hobby shop and talk with people. Really wonderful people. So I did pick myself up this particular kit called the Olympia Tool and Die. It is unbelievable. When I take a look at the details in this, I've been enjoying my own little laser cutter and doing things and feeling pretty proud of myself. And when you take a look at a proper laser cut kit, there are individual bricks on this, and I have never seen anything as wildly detailed as this. I mean, this is amazing. So I'm looking forward to putting this together. It's also pretty fantastic. I don't know if you can see well, but it has sort of like dadoed, we'll call it dadoed seams. And so what you can do is that you can either put it as one big long flat, or any one of those dadoed seams, you can turn it 90 degrees and build it into all sort of different configurations. So it's a wildly versatile kit. This is going to be probably a challenge to weather and paint, but I'm looking forward to it, and I'm really happy to support a manufacturer as well. So this was great. And that was basically it. I held off. I have enough pre-orders lined up that I am well aware that I need to not spend any money right now in order to maintain some sort of solvency later in the year. Just a second. I run games. Here in Portland, Oregon, the highway and freeway posts have grown spikes around the top to prevent people from climbing up and graffitiing the signs. Second Section podcast calls that taco sauce. I'm off to the beach. Just wanted to say hi. Have a great day. Approach medium. Panel liner. Detail pen in a bottle. Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to it. And so yeah, that was all of the shopping. I have got a number of pictures and video from visiting the Ontario Southland Railway, and honestly, super cool. My head gets spinning about stuff when I checked out the shop, and they had all these older units. I mean, they've got snowplows from the 20s, and they have repainted F units for running the snowplows, and a whole bunch of different 4-axle diesels in TH and B paint schemes and such, and it was just really cool. And you take a look at the size of the shop, which we figured was no more than 200 or 300 feet long, and you could build this entire railway shop on a 12-foot module. And then I'm like, oh, if I flipped HO and I took this, anyway, I'm not making any changes, but it was really, really inspiring to take a look at a small, compact railroad, a full, complete operation, and get those inspirations. It's not often for me that I get to take a tour of a shop and see what it's like. And that was a great experience. So again, thank you very much for having that opportunity. And thank you to Ontario Southland for being wonderful, gracious hosts about it. My friend Brian and I both decided that there is a market for a creosote scented candle, because as you're walking through these shops and that sort of heavy diesely oil smell is coming up, it really sets the scene. And so if anyone out there knows where we can get sort of a really manly creosote scented candle, definitely I'll buy a dozen of them and put them down here and bring some ambiance to the layout room. Kraus Trails, it was so hard not to spend money yesterday. Yeah, I think we both gave in regardless of what was going on. I'll probably be spending LTL Tuna this week in the 2021 RDK. I mean, there's nothing wrong with supporting the economy, right? The one thing that actually, as I think about it, so the one thing I was gifted without any request was actually a couple of garbage loads. Now, Otter Valley Railroad puts these together, and they I was checking out and I said, hey, do you mind taking a look at these and see what you think? Because they're sort of bespoke, they're putting them together themselves. And, you know, let people know that we have them. Because N Scale gets a little bit tricky. And it would seem that there was maybe some polarizing opinions on whether or not these were wonderful or not. And I really like them. And so they are done on a 3D printed base load. And then they have been dressed up using all matter of, we'll call it sweepings, sawdust, anything you can find. And then they've actually been wrapped in a tool to give it like the sort of the restraining mesh, or like, you know, like as they do for like truckloads and such. And I think these are absolutely outstanding. The fineness of all of the sort of crud that they've baked onto here, I think it looks great. And inside one of these, I mean, I can't say anything. This is wonderful. These are great little loads. I can't remember what they were. They were very affordable. And so it was kind of them to sort of gift me a couple and say, hey, if you don't mind taking a look at these and see how they would work for you. I think these are outstanding. Again, it looks like it's a 3D printed base, probably some standard sort of trash on top, and then they've dressed them with, you know, some real world debris. These are great. So, you know what? You can get in touch with them to see if they have any more. I know that their HO scale loads are very popular, and I think the N ones are slow moving right now. So just as a courtesy to them, these are wonderful. Worthwhile taking a look at as far as I'm concerned. The Ontario Southland is a great short line. Happy that you were able to visit the shop. The RS-23s are great locomotives. Yeah, Glenn Power Williams, it was great. I do like, aside from passenger equipment, 4-axle locos are something that I really like. And there was a point in time, so the two other railroads that I've ever looked at really critically was one called the Windsor Handsport in Nova Scotia. It's now gone. It was a gypsum railroad. And then Guelph Junction Railroad about 25 years ago. I was interested in modeling that. And actually Ontario Southland apparently did the work for Guelph Junction. They have since, you know, no longer have that contract. And so I keep gravitating when it's non-passenger to sort of short lines with 4 axles. And there's something about it that I think is, you know, kind of charming and really accessible. I have a number of ITL kits and they are phenomenal. Sky Cache, yeah, or Slide Cache. I can't get over it. You know, I'm going to do some work on my own laser cutting stuff tonight or this morning, and there is a very big difference between what I'm making and what I just purchased from them. Checked out the website. Oh, Kraus Rails. So $12.99. All right. So these little loads, $13. I think that's incredibly reasonable, and they look great in these cars. So what I'm fussing with this morning is I am continuing to work on my passenger platforms for my Aldershot station. I sort of got stalled out a little bit on it because I have been working on some platforms underneath the city. I did some ventilation fans and such. And so I need to continue working on these passenger platforms, and I've got all sort of different things that I need to work on at the same time, which is that I need to start joining the platforms together. I need to put some more safety lines on the yellow bands. I need to start glazing some windows, and I need to start putting some uprights and such. So I'm going to be jumping around for a little while this morning and trying to get some progress on this, because I really want these done. And I'm finding lots of good reasons not to work on it. And so I've got this first piece here that I need to glaze, and I need to actually paint some concrete on. It's this section here, so I have to add a concrete stripe to it. I need to add some yellow banding on this. And so perfect state, you know, within the hour is to have some of this all assembled, and so that I can take a look at it for the first time put together. Because this is sort of a kit as you go scenario that I created these without really test fitting them. Okay, so first thing I have to do is I need to get some concrete color onto this so that it matches this. So I need to mask this off and get a coat of paint put on. I'm Gonna have to excuse me, I've got a fan going. 2 seconds, kill that. All right, glass is off. Let's get into it here. And there's actually a really small laser etching along this so that I can line up the tape. One of the things I was learning yesterday is that I've been using a birch plywood to do this, and it's served me really well so far. But MDF, a really fine MDF, is the probably the preferred material, which is why the kits are absolutely phenomenal. There's no grain in that in MDF. Okay, so that's in place. And I'm going to go in with some basic concrete colors here. Fog gray is one of the ones that I like quite a bit. And I'm going to add a little bit of what they're calling ice latte. Just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to have to use the squeeze bottle on this one. With Repeat UK putting out such great 00 scale stuff, I've been really helping the Canadian trade balance. That's the thing about building in all the tens of thousands of projects you can get into. 100%. I'm grateful that I got this glut of projects that I can work on, because I do jump around quite a bit. I sort of get into the moment of getting inspired, and I like to pursue things I'm interested in, not always sort of like working on stuff that doesn't bring me quite as much joy. So I've talked about these before, these makeup sponges. I'm thrilled with them. Okay, so first of all, let's get that. So that one's getting set up. And in the meantime, I need to start adding some yellow banding to these, the safety bands. And I'm going to mask these off. I painted these all concrete colors on another stream. And again, there's a laser cut line on these that helps me to line up the masking tape. There we go. And I'm going to, before I put the yellow on these, I'm going to go back in with a concrete color to seal the edge, because I've learned my lesson that even a small makeup sponge will still bleed under the edge of the tape. And so by adding the concrete color first, that'll dry in minutes and seal off that edge, so when I pull the tape, it'll be a fine, clean line. Griffey, I'm having trouble with my eyes. Finding N Scale really tricky at the moment. Yeah, this has been a bit of a new journey for me that, you know, I've always worn, I'm typically been nearsighted, and so I have to go back and forth between, you know, I can read the comments now, but I can't work on my, my project with these on. But I'm definitely now into reader's territory. Mild reading glasses, but I do find that I have been sort of putting off getting them, but you know, as soon as I try someone else's readers, I'm like, my quality of life improves greatly. So yes, the eyesight thing with N Scale is real. I understand why HO remains the most popular scale, but I'm trying to not give in to feel like, you know, this is aging. So this needs a second coat over here. I also spent considerable time rebuilding inside of my cargo trailer, along with a few upgrades. Curious if anyone's going to Real Rails 2025 in October. I don't know what that is, Glenn. If you could share a detail, I'd appreciate it. I have really bad floaters at the moment, never had them before. Yes, there's a lot of new adventures as we age. In my eyes, yes. Thanks for the clarification. The sponged on paint dries so quickly. Okay, let that one go for a minute. So this is dry up here, and so I'm going to use school bus yellow to put the stripes in. I still need to experiment a little bit with painting with yellow. It's a notoriously difficult color to paint, and it's one of my more preferred colors. And one of the things about yellow is it has very poor coverage unless you spend a lot of money, and so you need to prime appropriately, and sometimes that's an oxide red, and I've even seen people use pink. So I'm going to use the other side of my makeup sponge. So I'm going to say that this is going to need probably 2 more coats. All right, and I can spin the sponge and go back into doing the concrete. Just let that sit for a minute. BP Custom Creations, good morning. How's it going? I like to base coat yellow with a super opaque white mixed with my yellow. That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes I'll use a shade of gray or reefer white for base of yellow, lighter colors, okay. Is there some color theory for why? There is color theory around it. First of all, there's a whole bunch of different sort of traditional color palettes. They're minimal color palettes. One's called like a Zorn palette and such. And this is actually from fine art. And so let's say that you put down a burnt umber color, so a dark chocolate color, and you take white paint and you wipe it across that, not to try to cover it, but just to sort of like dry brush it. What you will find that in some light, that'll look like a light blue. And so it has to do with the chroma and the opacity and how those things change. There's a big difference between mixing a color and, I say, staining a color. If you are weathering, for instance, and you were to paint solid, opaque rust color on top of a boxcar, it'll look like, a clown blew up all over the side of it. If you thin it and you put it on top, and so it's semi-transparent, if not near transparent, it tints the original base color. So when it comes to yellow, yellow has what they would, generally speaking, has a low pigment concentration, which means that despite it looking like it's thick, wonderful, colorful paint, it's still sort of transparent. So you need coat after coat after coat. And so depending upon what you put down as the primer coat or the original coat, it helps speed it up so that you get to the color you want. So right now, on top of that gray color, the yellow looks like green. Honestly, this is green, so I need to put coat after yellow on it. And to the point in some of the comments, if you used, let's say, an very opaque white tinted with yellow, that might help. For some people it's gray. As I said, some people use pink, other people use oxide. If you used like a terracotta color, an oxide color, it's going to create a very warm yellow. If you use like the gray, it's going to cool the yellow down. If you use white. And so that color theory is that basically because the paint's never going to go on opaquely, whatever is behind it is going to influence the output color. In a nutshell. And right now, because of using just this sort of brown color, as I said, this yellow that I'm going over top with appears basically green. Now, I know that it's not going to matter much once I put the weathering on, and I'm not concerned about it being perfect. back into some concrete over here. Okay, I'm going to call the concrete done, and the yellow can keep going. There we go. So there I've got the faux concrete on the bottom and then the brown metal housing for this part of the passenger overhead. Pat Smith, Warhammer miniature collectors and painters call this technique glazing, kind of like the glazing on a donut. It's a thin coat of paint. Yeah, Pat, and glazing oftentimes includes a medium. Are we channeling our inner Serenity Firefly? 10 out of 10 YouTube. Yeah, Glenn, thanks very much for putting it in there. Rust-Oleum has an industrial yellow, but it goes on a 1/4 inch thick layer. Yeah, rattle cans and N Scale generally don't work well together. All right, so I've got these two little pieces primed up. I need to get these a little further along. How are we doing in terms of, do I think that looks yellow enough? Yes, I'm going to call that done. So it's going to be very difficult to see here, almost near impossible. But against that concrete, that looks like a dirty yellow stripe, so I'm okay with that. And while I'm waiting for this to dry, I've got some yellow there, I'm actually going to join these two pieces together. And I'm going to do that with a bit of paper and some super glue. And we'll see how badly I can get this stuck to the workbench. All right, let me pull this out from underneath it. Let's see if you can see. So I've got just a piece of regular white printer paper. I need to get my adhesive. This is my super thin CA glue, and I am only going to put like 1 or 2 drops here. So it's hard to see, but that hits the paper and it wicks under that little piece of wood. So now this is glued on, and I'm going to come in with the other piece, and hopefully when I hit the seam here with it, so I'm going to come in right on the cut line and down through some of these holes that I put in it. Pardon me. And there you go. Those are now joined. Now there's a bit of a super glue on that. I will be able to clean that off and touch it up with a bit of paint. So, really rigid, stuck together. It needs a bit of touch-up, which is fine. That's why I've got the paint out. There. Totally handled. Back together. So now what I can do is I can go on to painting the remaining yellow lines in. I'm realizing that I probably need to go along this edge. The passenger station is going to continue to be a week-to-week project because it is sort of fussy. And in the meantime, I'm going to start other bits of scenery work. What do we got going on in the chat here? Nice technique for, thank you very much. Yeah, artist gesso is the way over PVA nowadays. Yes, the Wick technique. John Wick. Safety stripes could be done with a striping set of decals from microscale. Absolutely. Platform looks great. Thank you very much. I was looking for reflective strips yesterday because I would love to put reflective strips over some graffiti on the cars. They didn't have any in stock at the time. I'm hoping that yellow paint's dry because I'm just deciding to mask over this part right now. All right, good enough. So I'm going to come in with a bit of the concrete color, just to mask that edge so it doesn't bleed. All right, and while that's drying, I'm going to get on to the business of glazing. So these two little guys need to have some windows put behind them. And for that, I've got clear acetate sheets. And these are actually made for the photocopiers. You can pick them up at the business, you know, any of your business stores like a Staples or that sort of stuff, Business Depot. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some strips, and I'm going to very carefully put them on the inside of the window using a bit of super glue. And I've got to be a little more precise with this. So number one, backside. All right, and the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the end of this, and I'll show you what I mean. So, this is a super glue I like because it's really thin, and this is a bag of disposable tips. This was not worth much of anything, maybe $10 for like 100 of these tips. And so the super glue, in the state that you buy it, this tip is actually removable. It just fits on, and as I use them, you need to sort of trim it to keep it going because it will clog. And so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a brand new tip onto this. And that's it. That's the new tip. It's flexible. It's really, really tiny. And so this is probably going to be difficult to see, but I've got the glazing lined up. It goes further than the end of the piece that I'm putting it on because I'm going to trim it after the fact. And I'm going to come in with the smallest dot of super glue, and it's going to wick around the corners of that and attach it. Little wipe to get rid of the excess. And I go into the other corner here, literally just one drop and it'll wick. And I'm going to just drop on the bottom and another drop over here. And so the place where the acetate meets the wood, it just disperses and goes around. Again, I'm going to wipe off the excess. So you can see it's not all the way around, but this is good enough for what I need. This is going to hang on just fine. All right, and then I need an X-Acto knife to trim that off. Where's the X-Acto knife? Tons of pencils. X-Acto knife, where are you? I would use Microsoft Crystal Clear for the acetate. Give and will allow this at millimeter. Okay, I've had Windows bow on me using CA. This is interesting. I haven't had the same problem, but I appreciate this. A lot of time, the choices I make in terms of what I'm using, it comes down to impatience and what's on hand. So knock this down a little bit. All right, window number one is done. Let's switch gears for a second. This concrete color is dry. I'll throw on a bit more yellow. Or start the yellow. When I was actually at the hobby shop yesterday, I was sort of drooling over all the different paints and such that you can use. And it always comes down to, I can either have a new car or a new locomotive or a collection of different paints. And so I always sort of tend to go with the cheapest option for the paint, perhaps to my detriment. Okay, next coat of yellow on. Assembly line here, take that out. Sponge goes back there. Window number 2. Now, one of the things I will do with this in terms of weathering is that this stuff, Goof Off, which I think contains xylene, will fog acetate. And so if you put this on like a cotton swab and go over top of the acetate, it'll fog it up, which will make it look like it's either frosted or really, really dirty. Okay, so same sort of process. I've got the window, I've got my piece of acetate. Make sure it's lined up. And a bit of wicking. And we'll let that sit for a second. Really good tip a couple weeks ago is that I've used an accelerator with the really thin CA glue, and it actually makes it clump up. So I appreciate it. I forget who mentioned that to me, but it turns out to be a tip that's helpful. So thicker CA, it's better to use with the accelerator. All right, that can set up for the time being. I use clear tape instead of acetate, then drop crystal clear or pledge floor polish onto the window frames. Makes amazing looking windows, especially with those clear block windows and industrial stuff. That's a wild tip. Wow, floor polish. I've never, That's amazing. Okay, so let's get this knocked off. All right, 2 windows down. Back to the yellow. Okay, that's done with that. Now I've got 2 more little pieces I need to add acetate to. And these are wild. So they are these little end doors. They were much easier to draw and laser cut than they're going to be to put together. And so I need to figure out how I want to approach this. I'm going to try cutting it the other direction. Let's see if I can make the window height. Close. This is a really great tip. Thank you. I need a microscope camera for all this stuff. Okay, so let's see if that'll work out for me. I think that worked. Get the second one done. Okay, I'll let those set up. And I'm going to say that this stripe is done now. Ah, cheater. There's a couple spots where it's still sort of flowed under. Oh well. You'll be amazed how easily I'm going to be able to live with that. And so if I remember correctly, these bits are going to go here. All right, I'm just going to have to commit to this and put them in. So another thing that I learned making these is that I'm not quite sure what the laser cutter tolerances are yet. So this piece is going on like that, and then there's going to be a series of posts and a roof that go with it. And this one will go on this side like so. Right, so it's a two-sided shed. And then these little guys go on the ends. So I need to trim off the last of the acetate on these. This project may get into a level of fussiness that I need to pause. So having not assembled this kit before, I'm starting to, or kit, my little creation here. So I just smashed that window, which is fine. I printed a bunch of them. So this is probably something that I'm going to need to take a look at, is that this is a bit too tight. So I'm going to need to sand these down. Let's get my emery board in here and knock the edges of this off a little bit. Okay, so that fit with a little bit of the fussing. Can I get this side in? So I'm going to assume that what I should do is just sand a bit of this down too. Oh, that made all the difference in the world. Okay, so going forward, sand. I think before I even go any further, I'll give these a quick sanding as well. Also dipping your say clear canopies in the future. Ah, okay, good. Lots of great stuff from you. I appreciate these comments. Okay, so let's see if I can't. So I'm gonna just commit this guy right in here. So I'm putting the super glue on the inside of the walls here. The roof will go on after this. I haven't even got to that part yet. All right, so that's in perfectly fine. I need to get this guy set. Good, and then I got to get this last wall in, which I have sanded the little pegs off. Okay, let's see if that worked out. That's going to be great. Okay, I'm not unhappy about that. I'm going to need to add a little bit of concrete paint around the end. But definitely, I'm going to be able to work with that. And so what happens after this is that I've got all these little laser cut posts that were like ties. And they all going to go all the way along the length in each of these sets of holes that you see. And then the canopy roof goes on top of it. Everything is so fragile. So clearly what I'm learning is that I need to give these a little bit of a sand to make them work. And I did do a little bit of practice, and I've got this excellent little anodized aluminum square, and it is the perfect little tack hammer to get these into place. So I think the level of fussiness that goes with this makes it a great candidate for an unlive project at this point. But this is what I'll sort of chip away at over the coming weeks. And then I'll grab the roof sections. So the roof is going to be, it's a brown roof, and then it has a white sort of inset top on it. Let's see if I can't figure out a way to get you to see this. So there's the shelter. It has all these sort of running posts with just an overhead canopy. There's doors on the end of this sort of glassed-in section, and then there's a raised white panel on top of it. And then there are some ventilation fans that go on top of that. And I'm not going to do what's prototypical. I'm going to use some of the blower fans and stuff, actually from that kit that I was painting a few weeks ago. I'm going to use these instead. So I want ridiculous fans on top of it, so it gets away from being realistic and starts to go towards something a little more absurd. Kevin's Tiny Trains, you may want to add a small yellow stripe at the bottom of these posts. Many places can have them. Very good point. Once again, I'm watching while working on my depot build. Also, good morning, N Scale Train Boy. Train Scale, I catch your live stream finally. Well, good morning then to you. Would a vise and a drill bit for the platform holes be faster? I just don't have one that is the size of this. Also, I need to remember that the paint probably made these swell a little bit, which stands to reason. I'm looking here and I didn't quite get that all the way in, and I've super glued it. I think I can hammer it down. Probably not. I'm probably can be committed to the way that this is now set up. All right, well, so that's going to be the back of the platform. This is now the front. Let's see what the conversations are as I have to mull about how I want to continue with this. Back to the glasses. Over here it's 3 p.m. Well, good afternoon to you. Good evening from Australia. Good morning or good evening, Australian N Scale. I'm located in Switzerland, 2:20 here, 6:20 a.m. here. I run games and trains. So you must be on the West Coast then. I run games. Kevin Toy Trains. Modern problems require a modern solution. I thought using a laser was a modern solution, but you know, this little hammer might be able to get me through it. I'll do that off camera so that when I shatter this, I've already gone through a number of these, breaking them, because they're a little more fragile than I were hoping they were going to be. The other thing is that these, because they're plywood, have quite a bit of warp to them, and so this is going to be sort of the IKEA school of engineering, that when all of the uprights are in and the roof is on and the glue's in place, these will become incredibly rigid. Right now, these are really flexible and a bit of a challenge to work with. But I've got some progress on this, and I can see that it's going to look pretty great. For reference, the platforms are going to be about 4 feet long. They will have a centralized area, a centralized little unit that I'm making. Let me see if I can't. Hang on, so it goes upstream of this. So this is the unit here. I gotta find a spot. There we go. And so the elevator shaft is here. It doubles in width, and then it has these 2 wings that build onto the side of it. So it's elevator shaft, 2 sides, then cover things, and then more overhang. So it is a substantially long passenger platform. A lot of the kits that I've looked at, number one, passenger platforms aren't a big kit thing. I was talking with my friend Brian yesterday, I'm talking with my friend Chris, and the only passenger stations you can find are, generally speaking, like the turn of the century, you know, sort of Tudor roofs with little gables and such, and there's really no modern passenger stations, and certainly modern passenger platforms are only, or seem only available through like Kato, because of that sort of Japanese aesthetic. And so this is the first time I'm doing this, and I haven't seen a lot like this, particularly in N scale. I run games. I'm in Portland. Lots of acting, train, bridges, tunnels, and Pacific. I run games. Okay, BP customer. What laser are you using? It takes some experimenting to get the kerf factored in. I'm working it out on my laser 2 lately. I think my laser is an Afero. I forget what it is. My laser cutter is definitely a hobbyist laser, so it uses an LED laser head. I sort of made a bit of a mistake when I purchased my lasers. So there's lasers that are cutters, there's lasers that are etchers, and there's hybrid lasers. And effectively what that means is that the spread of the beam. And so with a cutting laser, the beam remains sort of as laser straight. And on an etching laser, for engraving, let's say, the beam will spread a little bit. So it's the idea of like, either you can write with a pencil or a paintbrush, let's put it like that. And so on my laser, it's in between, so it has a bit of spread, which means it's okay for etching and it's okay for cutting. And so if I cut material that's any thicker than a couple millimeters, the hole, I'll exaggerate, but it cuts the hole sort of chamfered. And so depending on which side's up and which side's down, it gets tight and such. So there is definitely some fussing, and I admittedly don't have the patience for it, so that's where the emery board comes in. Just knock down the edges and hammer it in, and it should be fine. I mean, this will get covered with, you know, once this is all in place, I'm going to then weather it, so there's going to be trash barrels and vines and green moss and such. And so any of the sins that I've introduced at this phase, I'll be able to sort of conceal later with lots of junk and weathering. So I'm not totally concerned. What I do want to make sure, though, is that it's straight and it's true and it's well assembled. Tomix, yes, Tomix does some really nice stuff. Wathers has some modern station platform kits. Oh, okay. Right now I'm working on a sub base for my 12 stall roundhouse. N Scale Train Boy, yes, Japanese Kato platforms are really only the modern stations and platform available in kits. This has been a fun project to work on. You know, I'm really pleased with it. It is been very challenging to work at this scale. The uprights on these windows are 0.5 millimeter thick out of 1 millimeter thick plywood, and as you might imagine, they shatter as soon as I put any pressure on them. And so after I cut them, I soak each of these little uprights with a bit of super glue to plasticize them, and actually the window glazing gives it a bit more strength. And then when you insert them, you have to use something like this, so that you put pressure across a bunch of mullions just not in one place where you push down, because that shatters it. I mean, even though this little piece, this window, I shattered that just by putting too much pressure on it. Now, I knew that was going to happen. I've printed handfuls of these, or cut handfuls of these. So that puts me in a lot better shape. It's pretty cold. Brunswick. Yeah, those uprights are super fun, but they're going to look great. You know what? They do make it. If I can survive the manufacture process, it'll be great to go back to some of these big sort of crude kits for background buildings. They're super forgiving. The laser cut plywood has been a great adventure. I'm really happy I did it. And as I said, you know, after seeing the ITLA kits yesterday, and the detail that they put into this masonite, I'm realizing that there is a lot of work that needs to be done for me to feel like this is anywhere near the level of these. But this is going to be a lot of fun to put together, and the building was amazing. All right, I think that I shouldn't do any more on this. I'm going to rush something, and I'm going to break something. So I think the next step to close this out is I'll get another one of these, I'll put some windows of glazing on it, and I'll try to get the first little building put in place, and maybe add those posts over the rest of the morning, and then put the roof on and call it quits and stop there, because if I start to rush anymore or get into this, I'm going to break something. Kevin's Tiny Trains, I have to ask, widening them from 1.5 millimeters width, how much realism are you losing, and how much structural integrity would you gain? I think that, So if I made them a bit wider, I don't think, like, I guess it really depends how you want to look at it. I'm sort of I like to look at things at arm's length. So for this pike that I'm working on, my preference is that you come down and you sort of cross your arms and you look around, and stuff is moving, and there's scenes, and there's levels, and there's foliage, and there's grime, and there's, you know, sort of like broken stuff and debris and rubble, and it's the sum of the parts. You look at it and say, like, man, this is, you know, falling apart and disgusting and grimy. And you photograph it like such, you know, like sort of like you're in a drone, like you view the railroad as if you're in a drone. And so a lot of those details, the uprights and such, kind of become irrelevant because you're not close enough. I think that certainly if I take a picture of anything using my phone, the amount of detail it picks up can almost be defeating, because you're like, man, this looks like so toy-like. Even though when you're building it, 0.5 millimeter in width seems super small, you take a picture and it seems quite crude. So I think, from my perspective, there is a good enough threshold, and so for these, I think these are going to look great, good enough, and if I can get them together, there's no issue. Like, so if I can assemble it and it all goes together fine, then I'm not going to fuss about it. If this is too difficult and I keep shattering parts, then I'll go back and maybe widen them. I don't think that's going to happen. I feel pretty good that I should be able to pull this off, but I would definitely be very willing to trade aesthetics for functionality. Like, I'm not concerned about grossly thick guardrails on an engine. I'd rather have the guardrails than keep breaking them off by picking them up. And so in this case, these 0.5 millimeter uprights look wonderful, but if they break too much, then I can make them the same width as these uprights over here, which is 1.5 millimeters, which look great too. But you can see how that thinner looks a little nicer, but I could easily upscale it. I have a diode laser as well. The laser dot size is small, but not 0. Unless it's a stationary laser head in the X-Tool F1, it's the only reason the beam would be perfect is that it's not in focus. Yeah, okay, very interesting. Yeah, getting the rasterizing settings dialed in, the surface texture laser cutter is the key. This is really great. Your focus length may be off on your cuts. Yeah, I don't have an option to focus the laser. It's basically I have to use different thicknesses of, we'll call them gapping tools, to drop it down on the laser, onto the material. The reason I asked was for Reddit, people complain about the thickness of guardrails, as you said. Yeah, again, you know, I was having so on the drive back yesterday from all the events, my friend Brian and I were talking about the sort of the good enough principle, and from my perspective, if the sum of the parts, if when you take a look at the whole thing, you find it pleasing and it functions well for you and you can pick it up without it shattering into bits, I think that's the sweet spot. I think it is easy to really dial in on a detail and maybe, sorry, I'll say this differently. If it's important to you, that's you. For me, it's less important. Again, some of the parts. When I see a completed railroad or a completed scene or anything, I'm not going to try to find something that destroys it for me, like, oh, that lamppost is, you know, way too big around, or the guardrails are too big. That doesn't bother me. I have some lovely, really nice Rapido, the Canadian passenger set. It's 11 different cars. I love it to death. But some of the little grab irons and foot stirrups on it break off so easily that I've got like a little baggie with them in it. And I'm not going to put them back on because as it spins by, you don't even know they're not there. So I'm not saying it's a futile detail. I'm just saying that I am not caught worrying about that minutia of detail. It's this sort of nice happy medium of functional and good looking. Good enough is good enough, so to speak. Let's see, people on Reddit. Right, okay, so you know what? It's 9:30. I should stop this because I'm going to start pushing things a little too hard and I'm going to shatter it. My coffee's completely cold and I'm happy with where I've landed. As I said, I'm going to go away for about 2 weeks, and so no one's going to see me for a little while. I've got some wonderful adventures ahead of me. I'm actually really excited, and if all turns out, I should be able to share some of that with you. And I'm hoping that it'll appeal to some other people as well. Once again, at the beginning, I thanked Sparky 107 Dave for hosting this 4-day event, and I appreciate letting me sort of visit for day one. I want to thank my friend Chris for offering to drive. And I want to thank all these sort of YouTubers from literally around the world for introducing themselves and having some great talks. I'm going to stop the project here. I really want to thank you for joining me this morning. I hope you have a great day. Hope you spend some time on your own hobby room. And if not, I hope you take advantage of great weather if you've got it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.